Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the video. In this video, I'll be designing process and metadata capture, essentially using a DynamoDB single table design. So what is the ask here? Let me explain you the concept and the background here. Let's say there are jobs running, Python jobs, long running jobs, data cleaning jobs. These are some of the types of job, right? So you might be interested in capturing the metadata. For example, when did the job start? When did the job end? And if a job failed, what was the error message, right? So on a high level, you are maintaining a process. So you know how many processes are there or what process is there in the table, what time it started, what time it ended, and was it successful or was it failed? Is it still in a pending state, right? So I'll show you a small article again. We use this internally, right? A batch framework, right? Again, we run so many jobs. Today we are running more than 3,300 jobs, right? So here in this video, I want to show you something similar to this. So if you observe this, right? So when a job kicks in, right, it will create a unique process, right? And you can see the start date, the end date, the job type, right? You can see that. And then each process will have several tasks. So basically you can see, was it a scraper? What's happening with the job, right? Exactly. You can have all the metadata essentially captured, right? So let's try to model that in DynamoDB. Okay, it looks like this is my old one. Don't worry, these credentials are not going to work. So let's try to model that in DynamoDB, okay? So so the first exercise I will do is, again, I know that I have three entities here. I have a process, right, on a high level, because when a job runs, I wanted to create a process. Let me adjust my camera. So when a job runs, it will create a process. The process ID has to be unique, right? So we'll use probably a GUID. So process ID is something that will uniquely identify this entity. We'll have a start date, end date, a status, and an error message, just the way I was showing here, right? We'll have a start date, end date, a status of the job, status, and what is the job type, right? I think I'll just put it here. So we'll put job type here, right? So, and we'll have job type ID. So we'll reference job type ID here. So because in the process, I want to know what type of process is it. Is this a scraper? Is this like a Python job, or exactly, right? It's just a high level. I'm gonna capture that. Now each process will have several tasks. When a process kicks off, right, it will say it will basically go into several function. And if you want to capture the function, right, because if you know that that particular method might fail or break, what you can do is we can capture those details. For example, we can say a name of the task, right? That could be literally a function name, or you could give a name there, right? A status on a high level, whether the task was complete or not. So these tasks are related to this process, right? And if that task failed, what is the error message? So now I know when a process failed, I can easily go into the task level and see, oh, so this is where it failed. So I know I have to go in my code and I can check the details, right? So that's that. Then in the status, we need, of course, the status is the enum, right? Whether it's in pending, start, progress, finished, failed, right? We also want to have a job type. Basically, this means what type of job is this, right? I do want to capture one more item here, and that will be S3 log. So anytime a process will end at the end, right, it should upload the raw log into S3. So if anybody wants to see the log, I can go to my data lake or just go to the S3 and fetch the raw log, right? So this is sort of, again, very high level what I want to essentially get out of this, right? So I'm trying to get answers. For example, okay, for a given process, show me what is the status. Was it completed? Was it successful, right? One means you're completed, right? You can define that. On a high level, I want to see, okay, how many process was successful? How many process failed? For a process, what are the tasks? If something failed, which task did it fail, right? So essentially this metadata, right? And what was the error message if it failed, right? So I wrote down my access pattern, and here where I start the modeling process. So if you observe the way this is my first attempt to model it. Again, we'll do an end-to-end demo as well once we have done all these modeling exercise. So here I'm saying, hey, when a Python job, starts, create a process ID. This is gonna be a GUID, a random generated, unique identifier. My secondary key is also going to be the same, and then here I'll capture the start date, the end date, the process status, right, on a high level, an error message, and the log of that on S3. So basically, I have a high level view of a job, right? What time it started, what time it failed, how much time it took. I can subtract these two columns and get that, right? I can also get, for example, the high level status, right? Then each process will have several tasks. So task one, task two, right? Job started, running this, whatever XYZ, right? So these are the details, right? Now, if you observe, I have columns here. For example, task will have a name, right? I'll have a name of a task. What is the status of the task, right? Was it completed? Was it failed? The timestamp of, both of that. And then I would have, I'm essentially referencing, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see. So if you observe here, I'm referencing the process in the task table. Why? Because I want to see for a given process, show me all the tasks that you have. I might want to dive into the task level detail, right? So hence I'm using a global secondary index to fetch all my tasks. So basically in single go, I can say, okay, for this process, what is the status? Okay, started at this time, ended at this time. This is the status, this is the log. Okay, show me all the tasks that for this process. So I can query my GSI and fetch all the tasks in a pretty efficient manner, right? Now, if you observe for status, I don't want the user to pass in the status like success, successful. They might pass anything, right? I want to control that, and hence I'm modeling that. Here I have a status, I have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I have these values. So when a user says 1, it's gonna go and check in the database or in the Dynamo and say, hey, is this number, do you have it? If you have it, then it's gonna insert these numbers. So that way I am controlling, I'm not letting user to pass anything. The user will only pass enum values from 1 to 4, and then of course the values are defined here. So I'm using one to many. So again, I'm using a sort key, right? So status, and then I have all these numbers, and then of course there are statuses. These are all possible statuses I can have. And then I have a job type, for example, Python script, scrapes, data cleaning, right? So basically, if you observe, it's a pretty amazing way to capture the metadata about a job. So I can say, okay, for a job, this is when it started, this is when it ended. So I know how long it took, right? Then I can see the status, whether it's in pending, started, progress, successful. I can see the status throughout the job, right? Then other thing that you can observe is if you want to go into the raw logs, you can go and go to the data lake. I'll be partitioning this into year, month, a day, and then followed by a job type, right? And then of course the raw log file would be there, right? And then if a task did error out, or if a process did fail on a high level, you will have a process error message. So usually the exception that your code generated shall be captured here. So now oh, looks like raise value exception. Maybe something in my code generated a value exception. Then you can dive into task level, and if needed, you could log your important task, right? So again, what we are trying to do here is we are trying to develop a generalized metadata capture system. So basically we'll develop, again, this is just a design here, but I'm gonna, again, we have done this in SQL while developing the batch framework. As you can see, we can see a process will have several tasks, right? You can see the status of these tasks, right? So now what we will do is basically, let me put this down, man. The goal here is basically once we have a design, once we develop all the GSI, LSI, then we are gonna write amazing design patterns. Of course, we're gonna use Python, and we're gonna develop, these templates. So all the user has to do is simply decorate their function with something called process, and automatically when a job starts, it will essentially create a unique process. It will store that on the DynamoDB, and they can decorate their important function with, for example, add task, and automatically that would capture the function name in the DynamoDB. And if anything did error out, the decorator design pattern will do all the jobs for us. So we're going to develop these amazing templates here, and I'll show you all these in action for sure. But this is sort of a design, so hopefully this made sense. So here in this design, what we're trying to capture is, hey, for a job, what is when did it start, when did it end, right? How much time it took, right? You can easily subtract two of them, right? You can also see what are the tasks associated with the job, what were the statuses of those jobs, sorry, what were the statuses of those tasks which are related to a process, right? So essentially we are capturing the metadata. And the reason we are here using DynamoDB is A, because we don't need to worry about scale and the number of connection. It can easily handle massive amount of scale and massive amount of writes and read at the same time, right? So yeah, this is the first part of the design. Hopefully this made sense to you. We are leveraging the concept of a single table design. I have done so many videos on that, so hopefully that made sense to you. I also have a mind map, so if you're trying to learn Dynamo, I'll leave the resources here in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video where we will try to write some, we'll just make this into a Python classes, and then we'll start writing amazing decorators, right, which the user can use in their code. So simply whenever they're writing a Python job or any sort of job they're writing, all they gotta do is just decorate their functions, and automatically all this metadata shall be captured. So we'll use singleton design pattern, right? So we can make sure that at any point we only want one and only one single unique instance, right? So we're going to do all that in the upcoming next video. So this is just the design part, so hopefully this made sense. And again, we use this concept in the batch framework too. So if you are interested, if you observe, right, we store the logs on S3, right? We have the folder path. So now if a user wants to grab the log, they can go to S3 and fetch the raw logs, right? We format the the data lake as well, right? So yeah, all of that is coming in. So hopefully this was a nice informative video, and I'll see you in the upcoming next video. Thank you.